The old house stood on the hill, silent, watching. It had seen generations pass, their joys and sorrows swallowed by its stoic walls. Sarah, newly arrived, felt it first as a weight in her chest, an unease that clung to the shadows in the corners of her vision. The house whispered, not in words, but in creaks and groans, in the rustle of unseen things in the attic above. It was in the attic that Sarah felt the strongest pull, a sense of waiting, of something long forgotten. It called to her, a siren song of curiosity. One afternoon she climbed the creaking steps, dust motes dancing in the weak light from the single grimy window. The air was thick with the scent of decay and time. An oppressive silence hung heavy, broken only by the frantic tattoo of Sarah's heart against her ribs. Each step toward the attic's heart felt heavier than the last, as though an unseen force resisted her presence. The attic was a graveyard of forgotten memories, tattered portraits with eyes that followed, cobweb-draped furniture holding the ghosts of past lives. But it was the far corner that drew her, a space veiled in an unnatural darkness that seemed to consume the weak light. And there, nestled between a decaying dresser and a pile of moth-eaten tapestries, she saw it. A door. It was not the door itself that chilled her, though it was old and warped, its paint peeling like scabs. It was the emptiness that surrounded it, a void in the dust and cobwebs, as if even the shadows refused to touch it. The air grew cold, and a prickling sensation crawled down Sarah's spine. A single word resonated in her mind, unbidden, unwelcome: don't. The handle was ice against her palm. It turned with a groan, the sound like a whispered warning. The door swung inward, revealing not the expected confines of the house, but a swirling, inky blackness that seemed to devour light and sound. The air that spilled out was frigid, carrying the scent of something ancient and profoundly wrong. For a moment Sarah stood paralyzed, the rational part of her mind screaming at her to flee, but curiosity, like a venomous serpent, had sunk its fangs deep into her resolve. With a shuddering breath she stepped across the threshold and the door slammed shut behind her with a deafening finality. The attic, the house, her world, vanished. There was only the crushing darkness and the chilling certainty that she had made a terrible, irreversible mistake. The darkness wasn't just an absence of light, it was an entity in itself, heavy and suffocating. Sarah stumbled forward, her hands outstretched, but there was nothing to grasp, only the chilling void that stretched endlessly in every direction. Sounds, if they could be called that, began to rise around her, whispers, moans and screams that seemed to claw their way from the very fabric of her being. Panic swelled, choking her. She spun, desperate to find the door, but it was gone. She was trapped, alone in a realm of unimaginable terror, where reality itself seemed to fray and unravel at the edges. The whispers grew louder, morphing into grotesque parodies of human voices, taunting her, mocking her fear. They were in her head, she realized, slithering through her thoughts, feeding on her terror. Run! She had to run, but which way? Every direction was the same, a swirling vortex of darkness and despair. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs screamed for respite. She fell, her hands scraping against something cold and slick. A single word echoed in the cacophony, faint but insistent: back, back! But how could she go back when every direction led further into the abyss? Then she saw it, a flicker in the distance, a faint luminescence that pulsed like a dying star. Hope, fragile and easily extinguished, flared within her. She stumbled towards it, each step a monumental effort against the oppressive darkness that seemed determined to drag her down. The light grew, resolving itself into the shape of the door. Relief, so profound it bordered on pain, washed over her as she flung herself at the wooden surface. The handle was just as cold, the wood just as rough beneath her desperate grasp. With a strength born of pure terror, she threw it open and stumbled into the familiar dust and gloom of the attic. She lay there for a long moment, her chest heaving as she gulped down the stale air. The silence, once oppressive, was now a balm to her raw nerves. She was back. But even as she clung to that thought, a sliver of ice worked its way into her heart. The attic seemed different. The shadows seemed deeper, the silence more profound. The house remained silent, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of watchful waiting. Sarah never spoke of what she saw, of the horrors that awaited beyond the veil of reality, but the memory lingered, a dark stain on the fabric of her soul. She had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back. Life went on, but it was irrevocably changed. The ordinary had become tinged with the extraordinary. She could never shake the feeling that the door was still there, waiting, watching, and sometimes in the dead of night she could swear she heard the whispers again, faint but insistent, reminding her of the price of her curiosity and the chilling truth. The door was still there, and it was waiting for her return.